The perfect crime. Detective Alice Stone arrived at the crime scene, a lavish mansion in the affluent neighborhood of Beverly Hills. The victim, a wealthy businessman named Victor Sterling, had been found dead in his study, shot in the head. Alice surveyed the scene. There were no signs of a forced entry, and nothing seemed to be missing. It was as if the killer had simply waltzed in, shot Sterling, and walked out again. Alice interviewed the victim's family and staff, but no one had seen or heard anything suspicious. Sterling's wife, Isabella, was distraught, but she insisted that she had no idea who would want to harm her husband. Alice began to investigate Sterling's business dealings, but she couldn't find any evidence of any enemies or rivals. He seemed to be a well-liked and respected man. The case was going nowhere, and Alice was starting to feel frustrated. She knew that the killer was out there somewhere, and she was determined to bring them to justice. One day, Alice received a mysterious tip. An anonymous caller told her that the killer could be found at a certain warehouse on the outskirts of town. Alice and her team raided the warehouse, but they found nothing. Alice was starting to think that the tip had been a hoax, but then she noticed something strange. There was a small bloodstain on the floor of the warehouse. Alice had it tested, and it came back as a match for Victor Sterling's blood. Alice was baffled. How had Sterling's blood ended up in the warehouse? And who had planted it there? Alice decided to revisit Sterling's wife, Isabella. She confronted Isabella with the evidence, and Isabella finally broke down. She confessed that she had hired someone to kill her husband. Isabella explained that she had been having an affair, and Sterling had found out. He threatened to expose her, so she decided to get rid of him. Alice arrested Isabella, and the case was closed. But Alice couldn't help but wonder, who had Isabella hired to kill her husband? And how had they gotten into the mansion without being seen or heard? Alice never found out the answers to those questions. But she knew one thing for sure: there was no such thing as a perfect crime. Detective Alice Stone was determined to find the person who had planted Victor Sterling's blood in the warehouse. She knew that this person was the key to solving the case. Alice went back to the warehouse and searched it again, this time from top to bottom. She didn't find anything new, but she did notice something that she had missed before. There was a small camera hidden in the corner of the warehouse. Alice had the camera analyzed, and she was able to extract a video recording. The video showed a shadowy figure entering the warehouse and planting the bloodstain. The video was too blurry to identify the figure, but Alice was able to make out one thing: the figure was wearing a distinctive pair of shoes. Alice went back to the Sterling mansion and interviewed Isabella again. She showed Isabella the video recording, and Isabella immediately recognized the shoes. They were the shoes of her lover, Giovanni. Isabella explained that Giovanni had been the one to kill Victor Sterling. She had hired him to do it, but she had no idea that he had planted her husband's blood in the warehouse. Alice confronted Giovanni, and he confessed to the murder. He said that he had planted the bloodstain to try to throw the police off his trail. Giovanni was arrested and charged with murder. He was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Alice Stone was finally able to close the case, but she knew that it would have been impossible to do so without the help of the anonymous caller who had tipped her off about the warehouse. Alice never found out who the anonymous caller was, but she was grateful for their help. She knew that they had played a vital role in bringing a killer to justice. In the end, Detective Alice Stone was able to solve the case of Victor Sterling's murder, but not without some unexpected help. The anonymous caller who tipped her off about the warehouse played a vital role in bringing the killer to justice. The case of the perfect crime turned out to be anything but. Giovanni's attempt to plant Victor Sterling's blood in the warehouse was clumsy and ultimately unsuccessful. Detective Stone was able to see through his deception and bring him to justice. The conclusion of the story is a reminder that there is no such thing as a perfect crime. Every crime leaves some kind of trace, even if it's just the memory of someone who saw something suspicious. And even the most cunning criminals can be caught if they're not careful. The story also highlights the importance of teamwork in solving crimes. Detective Stone was able to solve the case of Victor Sterling's murder thanks to the help of the anonymous caller and her team. It's a reminder that we can accomplish more when we work together.